What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy Storyteller Jet with another episode of the Dat'z So Fire Talkshow. And today we have my man over here, Blake, and the show. Today we are going to have so much fun today. So many topics to talk about. Some really, really cool things, from going from prison, from like scaling multiple businesses to 8 and 9 figures. Man, today's gonna be jam-packed. Are you excited to get started on this?
Very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Baby.
Let's go.
That's awesome. So let's do a quick introduction of who Blake is and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, for sure. Well, for one, thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely,
Such a cool setup here at Devotion Studios. I met Jet by actually shooting my own podcast here. So if anybody's out there that's, whether you're just getting started creating content or you're deep in the game, but you're not happy with your setup, this place is fantastic. Located in Clearwater, Florida, super high tech, can basically match anything you want to do. And so, yeah, thanks for having me. So my name's Blake Ambrester. I am from St. Petersburg, Florida, born and raised. Not too many of us natives from around here, but grew up in a rough neighborhood, was a scrappy kid, always getting in fights. Always playing sports, always a good guy, right? Like good to my friends, didn't steal, didn't, hurt people or anything like that. But if we had beef, we would scrap a little bit. And so as I got older and kind of kept that habit going, it led me down some wrong paths. And so early on in my early adult life, I ended up going to prison, and I was a bouncer at a nightclub going to college at Florida State. Guy I got in a fight with, he fell and hit his head on the ground, went into a coma, and I ended up going to prison for a couple years. And so I knew that I wanted to make my parents proud. I knew that I wanted to do something with my life. I knew that that was not where I was meant to be. And so when I got out, I kind of put my nose to the ground and just started working, man. Little by little, met a really great girl, had our first kid, and just got inspired that I did not want to work for somebody else any longer. And so ended up starting a solar business, which birthed a few other companies, which we'll get into today. And life is just incredible how God works through us. When we think we're at rock bottom, when we think there's no way out, God always makes a way.
Absolutely, 100%. And I'm the true testament for that as well. So, man, you have such a wonderful testimony, and like hearing you start your podcast with two other fantastic gentlemen has been very inspiring. And, taking all that you've learned about your experience and doing something for Christ. And the podcast is called Sold Out. Let's go.
Sold Out. Let's go.
Yeah. So using all the things that your experience and all the things that you've learned along the way to advance the gospel. So like truly commend you for that, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah. To God be the glory, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so let's talk back to, the past a little bit. So can you talk a little bit about like how you ended up going to prison? Like, I know you touched on that a little bit.
Yeah.
But I know a little bit of the backstory too from us, like, talking a little bit about that, which I felt like was like very unjust, but like, yeah.
In the worldly eyes, it may have been unjust, but God had a plan for me, right? He knew that I was on a path of destruction. And so sometimes he throws us into the fire furnace so that we can build spiritual endurance, so that we can come to him, right? A lot of us men, especially, were filled with ego. We're conditioned in the world we were brought up in. And sometimes that makes you believe things that aren't real. It makes you think things about yourself that aren't real. And so God will, really, he'll rescue you in ways that you wouldn't imagine, right? And so as a scrappy young kid, my dad used to always say to me, Blake, if you don't stop fighting, you're going to get shot, you're going to get stabbed, or you're going to go to prison. But what do young men do? They don't necessarily listen to their fathers all the time. And so I kept scrapping, and sure enough, it put me in the wrong place. So I was a bouncer at a nightclub called Chubby's in Tallahassee. I was going to Florida State. Those of you who were in Tallahassee anywhere from, probably the early 2000s up to about 2010, that was a huge, 30,000 square foot nightclub. And I was a bouncer. I had 2 jobs as a college student. I was bouncing at night, and then I was working for Mercedes-Benz during the day as a porter. I would move cars around the lot, clean them, get them ready for sale. And so, and in between that, I would go to class. So one night, we're at the nightclub, big fight breaks out. We're kicking guys out of the club. We break up the fight. We get all the troublemakers out. And, about 30 minutes later, as we're about to shut down, the guys we kicked out came back. And they came back with more guys than when they left with. And so they were looking for a fight. And a guy tried to swing at me. I ducked. I swung back, caught him on the chin. He fell and hit his head on the ground and basically went into a coma. It was a medically induced coma. He had what's called a subdural hematoma. He had internal bleeding in the top of the brain. And so, praise God, he ended up being okay. Nothing was wrong with him. He's lived a great life. We actually reconnected not that long ago, went to lunch together. And
wow,
yeah,
that is incredible.
Yeah, and so I fought the case for 15 months. My attorney was telling me the whole time, like, look, you've never been in trouble. You're going to get probation. Right before I was supposed to go to the probationary hearing, I get a phone call from my attorney. He's like, hey, I don't know how to tell you this. Another witness has come forward and said you sucker punched the guy. I don't think I can beat this case if we go to trial. And if we go, I feel that I'm going to lose and you score out to 5 years in prison. And so I was a young kid. I was 19 years old when I got that phone call. And so I was like, well, what's the other option? Well, he's like, the other option is you can plea out and you're still going to have to do some prison time. So, but it's less than the 5 years. You're going to be looking at about 18 months of prison. And so being young, dumb, green, not sure how the system worked, I agreed. And so I never really got to go to trial and, argue my side of the case because I had an attorney telling me, don't do that. We're going to lose. And so, they send me to prison. And I always knew who God was, always said that I believed, but it wasn't until I was in the prison walls where I recognized that the freedom we have as Americans is so incredible, and we take it for granted because we're born here and we think that it's owed to us because we're Americans. But the reality is that when you go inside those walls, you're reminded of what life can really be like when you don't have freedoms. And so I met this guy in there. His name was Harvey. He walked up to me. He's like, hey, I see you're new here. I just want to know, do you know Jesus Christ? And I kind of brushed it off because I was trying to be tough and cool and, didn't want people to see me. But over time, Harvey kept dripping on me, gave me a Bible, and I eventually started reading it. And as I started to read it, God started to speak to me. Not an audible noise, but he started to speak to me through his word. I didn't understand what I was reading. I didn't recognize what I was reading as something familiar to me, but I could feel the reflection of my life as I was reading. And so I gave my life to Christ. I said, I'm a believer. I'm going to start following him. And, it's brought me incredible distances and taught me so many things. And, I don't want to ramble on too much about that, but, prison was an eye-opener for me, right? It helped me recognize that, you can do one or two things with your life. You can lean on your struggles, your traumas, your past as a crutch and blame it and never become anything. Or you can use it as a platform to blast off and become all God has meant you to be. And
absolutely. Man, this is a fantastic testimony. So did you know Christ before going into prison, or was that your very first introduction to the Christian lifestyle, if you will, being in prison?
Yeah, so when I was young, my parents were still married. So they had, dual income. They were able to put me in private school. I went to private school for kindergarten through 4th grade. At about 7 years old, my parents split up. And shortly thereafter that, they pulled me out of private school, started going to public school. And so I had this early foundation of going to chapel, of going to church. I was Joseph in the colorful coat in my kindergarten play. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And it's funny how his story kind of played out in my life, right? He was kidnapped. He was thrown into prison unjustly, and then ended up in the king's palace, right? And so it's kind of a mirror story where, I went through something, I was in prison, and now I'm in the king's palace. And so I knew who God was. I knew that you had to believe in Jesus to get to heaven, to enter the gates, right? But what I didn't recognize was that it's the relationship. It's building that relationship with Christ to where you start to see your life change. The onion layers of your life start to get peeled back, and you start to recognize more and more of your, what I would call secret sin. The sin we have between our two ears, right? The thoughts that we have, the things that we latch onto for a moment and let them snowball. The lust that we have as men, right? Something I really struggled with as a young adult, and even into my, mid-20s, I was struggling with it. And so all of these little things started to pop up into my life that were basically God telling me, hey, take a look at this. You don't have to fix it today, but I'm going to be here with you as you start to work on these things. And then over time, I've grown so far from who I used to be that the thought of sinning literally makes me feel sick. Not that I don't sin, because when I do, I feel sick. But even the thought of it, if I catch it before, I'm much more easily a way to turn away from it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Wow. So now that you were in there for like 18 months, is that correct? Yeah. So can you talk to me a little bit about that experience being in prison for 18 months? Like, what is it like to be inside?
Man, you know, before you go in, you know, you have all these thoughts, right? I've seen prison in movies and TV shows, and it always shows like extreme violence, you know, rape, things that any young man would be terrified of, not knowing what's on the other side of those walls. But, you know, when you get in there, yes, there are career criminals. Yes, there are people who are violent. Yes, there are gangs. But the reality is there's a lot of people in there just like you and me. They made one mistake, and they're paying for that mistake right now, sitting inside of a cell. And so, you know, you find people that are like-minded, that are wanting to get out and never come back. And you do form a brotherhood. You build relationships, friendships. You grow as a person. For me, what I think I gained most while I was in there was just a mental toughness that I didn't have before. I could always fight with my hands, but it was always chaos in my mind. And when you go to prison, you know, you really have to control your emotions. You don't want to show fear or sadness, because then you look weak. And there are people in there, not just people, but groups of people in there that want to take advantage of that, right? So it gave me an incredible amount of mental toughness. It also helped me recognize how good we really have it here in America as free citizens. There are many places around the world that they live every day of their life without being a free citizen, not in a prison, but in a country where they're under communist rule or socialist rule or whatever it might be. And so that really opened my eyes to live a life of gratitude, to recognize the little blessings that we have, from our ability to see, talk, and walk, to having strong bones and muscles, to being able to take a hot shower when you want, being able to cook your own meal in your own kitchen, being able to drive to the gas station, being able to play with your kids freely out in the park, go to the beach, whatever it might be. You miss those things so much when you're in there. And, you know, lastly, you realize how important family is, because out here we get so caught up in the hustle and bustle of life. We're growing businesses. We're, you know, trying to network. We're trying to, you know, go TikTok or Instagram famous, you know, the things that we want to do to excel in our worldly successful life. But we forget how important family really is. And so I would say that coming out of prison, I recognize how good my mother and father were, even though they had their own issues because they had traumas as a child that they didn't get to deal with. Family's so important, man. Just taking care of the ones that have taken care of you, you know, being there for them, all of those things. And so prison, I always say, it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I would not change a single thing about it. I had to go through that. God had to put me through the fire so that I could come out like a piece of silver, right? Have you ever heard the story about the silversmith?
I have not.
So refining silver, you have to put it deep into the fire coals. You can't put it on the edge because it's not hot enough. And it has to stay in there for a long time. And so this guy was asking the silversmith, like, how do I know when the silver is refined? And his answer was, when you can see your reflection in it. So when God is putting us in the fire, he keeps us in there long enough to where he can see his reflection.
That's so fire, baby.
So fire, right? So fire. But yeah,
wow.
Yeah, it was a refining moment for me. I had to strip away the old me. I had to die to the flesh. And I still struggled when I got out, man. You know, you're thrown back into the real world. You've got to adjust. And, you know, so many things to talk about there.
That would be my next question. But before we transition from that, I know there might be a ton of like youngins out there, like, you know, 18, 19 years old. Is there any advice that you would give them about, like, you know, maybe straightening their path? Not, you know, maybe they need to go through something like this too, but like, any advice as it relates to, like, you know, that experience, or like maybe finding God or anything like that, so they don't go through like, going to prison or stuff like that?
100%. And I do have a great answer for that question because it's such a good question. And I feel like there's so many people out there that they don't know where to go because they're stuck in their worldly environment that they came up in. And so for me, I wanted to be cool. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to, be popular. I wanted to go with the trends. And the reality is that asses follow the masses, right? If you are following a trend, you're already too late. If you're trying to hang out with a crowd just to be cool, you're not being yourself. You're not being authentic. And so what I would say to people out there who maybe are living a life that is not pleasing to God, and maybe they have that little seed inside them that is telling them that, but they don't want to move because they're worried about what their friends will think. They're worried about what their peers will think. Pick up the Bible and start reading it. You do not have to understand it. You don't even have to comprehend it. God will do what's necessary. And the reality is that when you start making those moves, those people that you're worried about leaving you, you're going to lead some of them to Christ.
Yeah.
They're not going to say, oh, look at this fool. Of course, he went to prison. Of course, he gave his life to Christ. Like, I could do anything right now, but all I want to do is I want to pursue Christ because I know by pursuing him, all the other things that my heart desires will come after. King Solomon, if you know the story of King Solomon, he was the richest man to ever live on earth, even to this day. He was visited in a dream by a prophet or by an angel, and it asked him, what do you want? And instead of asking for riches and fame, he asked for wisdom. And so he came back to him and he said, Solomon, because you've asked for wisdom, not only am I going to give you wisdom, but I'm going to give you everything else that your heart desires behind it. And it's not like wisdom, like having knowledge, like understanding every book, but it's the wisdom to know that we come from a great creator, the greatest creator, the only creator. Wisdom that giving your life to Christ is not weak. It's not unmanly. It's one of the toughest things that you can do, right? Because everybody else just wants to do what they want to do. They don't want to have to submit. I think that's the hardest part for men, giving their life to Christ. I can't speak for women, but for men, I know for me, the hardest part was finally getting on my knees and fully submitting to God. Fully just saying, look, God, I've tried it all my way. I've tried and tried and tried, and I've failed miserably. I'm here, and I'm giving it to you. I cannot do this. I know that you can. Especially kids that are growing up in maybe a lower income area where you do have to be scrappy. You got to be tough. You don't submit to anybody, right? You got to stand your ground, and you've got to throw down. Otherwise, you get your stuff eaten for lunch, right? When you give your life to Christ, you're going to see a strength that comes over your body and over your mind that you've never thought of, that you never thought was possible. So if you're a young man or you're middle-aged or you're already past your prime, it's never too late. You're never too far gone. God is sitting there waiting for you. He misses you. He's waiting on the day that you will give your life to him, that you will just say, I've had enough of my own ways. I'm sick of me. Let your will be done.
I love it. Man, so awesome. So now that you got out, from jail, what was the adjustment like to be reacclimated to the outside?
Oh, man. This was probably just as hard as going in. When you're in there, I had mentioned, like, you can't be emotional. And so when you go for years without showing emotion, that emotion just doesn't come back right away. It's so extreme that I even had difficulty hugging my own mother. Wow. Right? And me and my mom never have had a bad relationship. We've always been close. She's one of the most selfless people on earth. But just the toughness that you have to put on while you're in there, and then you come back out in the real world where they don't have any idea what you've been through. And so that was really challenging. Just adapting to the reality is that nothing changed out here. Everything was the same. Yeah. But I had changed. I had changed for almost 2 years, and I was now a different person, and then I was trying to go back to the way I used to be. So I get out. I'm engaged at the time, and the reality is that I had this pattern in my life, which I think I've broken now. But it really, from 7 years old all the way till mid-20s, when I needed God, I would fall to my knees. But then when things would get good, I would relatively quickly drift back into the world, right? I would like, okay, I'm good now. Don't need God. Even would start to have doubts, like God's not real. Like, you did this. You got back here on your own. You climbed out of that on your own. But when you do that, God puts you in circumstances and scenarios to allow things to happen so that you fall back to your knees.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't want you to have the glory. He wants the glory because it is his. We can do nothing. We know nothing. We don't know anything. We think we know. We have all of these theories about life and scientific theories about, how old the world is and all these things. But the reality is we know nothing. We've only been told something by somebody else who had an idea. And so I start working at this big nightclub, and I'm engaged to be married. The girl that I was dating, traveled to see me every other weekend while I was in prison. She was a great girl.
So you were dating her before you went in?
I was dating her before I went in. Didn't think I was going to prison, found out I was going. And, I had no intentions of getting married. I was like 20 years old, right? But the fear of losing her in that moment, I just lost my freedom mentally, right? Because I know I'm going. I didn't want to lose her. And so I got scared. I went out and bought a ring. I asked her dad. He said yes. And then I asked her to marry me. I get out. Go ahead.
I don't want to derail you, but maybe we don't even need to talk about that. But her dad probably knowing that you're going in and you went to ask him and he still agreed for that. That's like interesting.
He knew me for a year and a half at that point. He knew my character. He knew who I was as a man. He also knew what I was going through. We just didn't know that the outcome was going to be that. And so I think he recognized, Blake had a mistake before I even met him. And right now he's going to have to pay for that mistake. And I trust him. And so that was challenging, right? So I get out, I'm working at this nightclub. I'm back in the world, man. I'm nowhere near God again. I've drifted away. And the day before my wedding, my best man dies in a motorcycle accident.
Wow.
Yeah. And so at that point in time, I'm doing drugs. I'm partying at the nightclub. I'm drinking. I'm smoking weed. I'm doing cocaine and other things that I shouldn't be doing. And so the day before my wedding, he passed away. And, the wedding still went on. Nobody stood up and said, hey, we need to put this on pause. And, I was literally high on cocaine when I walked down the aisle.
Wow.
Yeah. And, instead of my best man walking down the aisle with the maid of honor, she carried a white rose. And instead of my best man next to me, there was a gold stand with a glass plate. And so she walks up and she sets the rose on the plate, and I just break down, man. I break down. I hadn't been asleep in like 36 hours, because he had passed the night before. And so I'd just been up. And, I remember sitting up there just so embarrassed that I was crying in front of 150 people that were at our wedding. It was supposed to be a joyous moment, but it was a moment of real pain and suffering for me. And after that, fast forward, I'm in a dark place. I witnessed my best friend from kindergarten all the way through dead in the street. Parts of his body, chunks of his brain literally were in my hand. I showed up to the accident scene not shortly after it happened, and it wasn't fully cleaned up yet. And so that messed with me. And, I started being unfaithful to my wife at the time, and she found out and she packed her bags and left. And, I regret the pain and suffering that I put her through. But I know that God allowed that to happen because that wedding should have never happened. Somebody, myself included, should have stood up and said no, but the circumstances and the time frame just didn't allow for it to be stopped. And so, now we're separated. I'm still in the world. Fast forward a year, I meet the girl that I'm married to now. Really God-fearing woman. Her mother's a prayer warrior. Her grandmother's a prayer warrior. Just really came up loving God. And so we have our first kid. We start going to church. We kind of get pressed by somebody at the church that we were still living in sin because we weren't fully married yet. We were engaged and we already had a kid. And, it was really weird how God used all of these circumstances to really bring me back to him in the way that I'd never been brought back to him before. Because in prison, I read the Bible, but I was just reading to learn. There was no relationship.
Yeah.
And I knew that because hindsight is 2020, and looking back, had I had a relationship that I had now, I never would have done the things that I did after going through prison, right? And so, you know, he works on us little by little. I call it a drip campaign. You know,
A drip campaign.
For those, you know, he's got a drip campaign on you. You know, he's not going to force you. He's going to let your free will decide that I am going to submit to you, that I'm going to worship you, that I'm going to give all of my problems, fears, and anxieties over to you, and I'm not going to try and solve them on my own.
Yeah.
And so it's been a wild journey.
Yeah. Incredible journey. And now that you're going through all of that, you are out there like getting a new job as a bouncer, kind of following the same pattern like that you were doing, you know, before when the very first thing happened.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that transition to when you wanted to basically starting your own business. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, you know, I was working 2 jobs. I didn't want my wife Brittany to have to work. I wanted her to stay home with our son, and so did she. And so I was bartending at night at the Drink in Tampa, if you guys remember the Drink. And I was also working for Verizon selling cell phones during the day. So I would see them in between, and I would see them on weekends, but I was hustling. I was grinding just so that I could provide. I get fired from Verizon for not filling out paperwork properly, or it was something crazy, right? But again, God's hand is mysterious sometimes.
Yeah. Was that related to you going to prison prior?
No,
or
this is after prison. This is after my son's born. Now I'm slowly getting away from the world, and so I get fired from Verizon. I get another job selling software. While I had that software company, I got the idea from a friend to start researching solar and roofing. And so I'm online figuring out, okay, how do you get a license? How do you get financing for your customers? How do you grow a business? How do you start an LLC? All of these things, right? And I just had a light bulb go off. It was just like certain it was confirmation from God, because I was so sure that this was the route I was going to go. And so I got home that night, and I got out a pad of paper, and I just started researching online, writing down notes. And my wife's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm starting a solar company. I'm starting a roofing company." She's like, "How are you going to do that? Like, we don't have any money right now." And I was like, "I'm not sure, but I'm going to figure it out." And so shortly thereafter, I quit working at the bar. Her and I had a talk. I was like, "Look, I'm making enough money at a software company. I can quit working in the nightclub," because again, you're around things that you don't want to be around as a father, as a married man. You know, this world is wild, and it's getting more wild as time goes on, right? And so I quit the bar. I start work. I'm at the software company. I start taking the steps to start an LLC. I create a logo. I go on Sunbiz. I create the LLC. And I eventually have enough money to where I can start going out and selling projects and buying material. And so I'm door knocking on people's doors, selling solar. I sold a few big projects on Reddington Beach and Madeira Beach. Those projects bankrolled me to be able to go hire my own install crew. I was using a sub before, a subcontractor.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to hire my first install crew. And so I'm still working at the software company. Now I'm starting to really get Solar Bear going. June of 17, I get fired from the software company because they found out I was running a solar business on the side.
Wow.
Right? They're like, "Hey, look, we need 100% of your commitment." And I fully understand now, being a business owner, why you would need that commitment. But it was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because now I was able to give 100% of my commitment to Solar Bear. And man, oh man, things just started to fly. Jobs were coming in. I was just getting more leads than I could even handle. And so I was hiring sales reps. I get a phone call in August of 2017. It was a guy by the name of John Keith, who we're still great friends with. He calls me and he says, "Hey, you've been telling me about this solar company you're doing. We're getting out of the alarm business, and we'd love to sit down and talk to see what you're doing." So I meet John and his 2 business partners, Mark and Adam. And between August and November, we come up with an operating agreement. They purchase each 25% of the company. $100,000 was the most money I made in one moment at any given time. And so in 2018, January, we became partners. We went from doing about $500,000 in sales in 17 to $8 million in 18. We did 17 million in 19. We did 35 million in 20. We did 54 million in 21. We did 65 million in 22. And so the business just grew and grew
growing.
and grew. And, they had some skill sets that I didn't have. They already had a business that was in multiple states. They knew how to create work orders and systems and processes that allow a business to flow, efficiently. And so it's been a wild ride. From Solar Bear, birthed Roof Bear, which is our roofing company. It also birthed Air Bear, which is our HVAC division, and then Foam Bear, which is our spray foam insulation company. So from Solar Bear, God blessed us to be able to have three other companies on top of it.
And all of them are almost like 8 to 9 figure businesses.
Yes. Yeah. So,
we'll chat about that in a little bit and how we were able to, get to that level. But this is incredible. So incredible. How, God has taken you through that rough journey to kind of, really drive to where you are at today. That's incredible testimony.
Thank you. Yeah. I think we're all a little addicted to instant gratification, especially being in America, especially having the ability to get your groceries delivered and any other thing that you want can just come to your house now. The reality is that sometimes God will bring you a blessing out of nowhere, right? In an instant. But other times he stretches you out. He makes you wait. He wants to grow your spiritual endurance. He wants to put you through the test. Do you really believe? Do you really love me the way that you say that you do? Do your actions line up with your words? Is the tree bearing fruit the way that it should? And, it's funny because in the Bible, I think it says it 11 different times that one day to God is 1,000 years to us. Mm-hmm. And that sticks with me, man. Like whenever I feel like, I'm getting so sick of waiting, I remember that our concept of time is so flawed, right? Mm-hmm. And so it allows me to continue to stay steadfast and continue moving forward, no matter what the challenge is in front.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now let's talk about you growing your business, starting with Solar Bear. Actually, I'm going to take one step back so I don't forget about that. And we'll talk about how you scaled your business to 8 to 9 figures. But when you first got out, and I know a lot of people might be wondering about that too. When you first got out, how hard was it to get a job? Because I know a lot of different companies, they check for, past experiences like that. What did you do to kind of really help you get a job at Verizon or the software company?
Great question. It was challenging to get a job because I'm a convicted felon, and so people look at that and they pass judgment. But I think if you're willing to be authentic and share your story, which I was, people can see past it. I was given a second chance, and God has given us a million second chances over and over and over again, right? And he'll keep giving them because he knows we're going to fail. But it was challenging, right? I had my attorney write a letter of recommendation on my behalf because Verizon wouldn't hire me at first.
Yeah.
The nightclub, I knew people because I was working at the nightclub before I went to prison. So they knew my story. They knew me from the past. And, I was able to get out and really get a job there right away. But as I got married and started to grow a family, I knew that wasn't where I wanted to be. And so I had to go to kind of corporate America. And corporate America, really, they're really black and white, right?
Yeah.
If you are a convicted felon, we can't hire you. Point blank, period. It's company policy. Doesn't matter how great you are or if you love God or whatever. Our company policy says we can't hire you, right? And so I got lucky. My attorney wrote a nice letter for me. I went to multiple in-person interviews and I sold myself. I tried not to use that as a crutch. I tried to use it as an opportunity to say, look, I'm coming for it all. I want to create a great life for my family. I want to create a great life for those around me. And I'm not going to let this little thing of my past hold me back. So if you're not going to hire me, somebody else is going to.
Fantastic. I love that. Yeah. So now let's talk about how you scaled your businesses to 8 and 9 figures. So you started Solar Bear first.
Yep, 2015.
2015. And then you said the first year you made $500,000 and then grew from there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even scale it to $500,000 in sales until about 2017. And then in 2018, once I took on partnership, there's a saying that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And the reality is that we as individuals, at least back then, there's only so much bandwidth that you have to take on tasks of the business, right? From your insurance and workers' comp to recruiting to accounting to customer service, all these things. One man can't do it. And, we were a home services construction company, essentially. And so having partners that you're aligned with, that are on the same mission as you, that are following the same vision that we've laid out as a group, that really helped us excel. Developing great leaders was a big part of it. Duplicating yourself as an entrepreneur in your leadership is the ultimate goal. Otherwise, you end up becoming a prisoner of your own business. And the first couple years, it kind of felt like that. Like I'd get home from work, I'd be walking around my backyard, pacing around the pool on the phone until 10 o'clock. She's like, why don't you just come home after you're done with all this? The kids want to play with you. I want to talk to you, but you're just outside. And so we did a program called EOS. Some people out there might be familiar with EOS.
Entrepreneur Operating System.
Correct. Entrepreneurial Operating System. So we did that for a year. That kind of helped us recognize where the bottlenecks were in our company. I was a bottleneck. My partner John was a bottleneck. My partner Adam was a bottleneck. And my partner Mark was a bottleneck. We were the bottlenecks in our own business because we were trying to do all the tasks. And so we started developing leaders. And man, after we did that, we could kind of take ourselves back from the main day-to-day stuff, but we could focus on the things that would help you scale a business, like big relationships, right? Networking, good financing, creating yourself to be an authoritative figure in the marketplace through content creation and putting videos out there that are educational based for your industry. We couldn't do those things before because we were so strapped on, all right, we got to make sure we got financing for our customers. We got to make sure we get funded today. Got to make sure we make payroll. But now we have people that have been trained and shown the right way to do that. They're appropriately compensated as well. You got to have good people. You got to pay them well. And now they only come to us when they can't fix the problem, when there's a challenge too large or needs an executive decision. And that allows us to focus on the customer experience, right? Yeah. Which is the most important thing for me. Like, I believe that service to many leads to greatness. And if we can continue to serve our customers at a high level, I know we're not going to be perfect. It's construction. Things happen. Things break. Guys make mistakes. But it's about what you do to correct those mistakes, which really creates your reputation. Yeah. And over the last decade, Solar Bear, Roof Bear, Foam Bear, we've created a great reputation, especially here in Florida. 2023, we opened up in Texas. And so, we're just getting our fingers out there. We're spreading quickly but responsibly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One other thing, obviously, the thing that catapulted you to grow so much was partnership, obviously. Yes. But one other thing that one of my great friends says, the only ship that never fails is partnership. So obviously, it has to be the right partner. So can you highlight for me, what are some of the things that somebody, if they're thinking about partnering with other people, what are some of the things that they should look out for, or like foundation that they need to build for a proper partnership? Yeah,
I can say I got so lucky with the partners that I was able to link up with out the gate. We were very much aligned. I had some growth to do. I'm the youngest of the group by like 15 years.
Wow.
And so, I had business acumen that I didn't have when I first started that I've gained since being in a partnership with these guys. You want to be aligned. What are your beliefs? What's your mindset? What are you telling yourself on a day-to-day? Are they faithful to their wife? Are they in any active lawsuits? Have they had bad businesses in the past that failed? Those are the things that you want to avoid, right? It doesn't mean that you can't get with somebody who made a mistake, because that's the reality. But if you see a pattern in somebody, there's a good chance that it's going to happen again because they're not willing to change.
Yeah.
But partnership is very powerful because more minds, more eyes, more ears, more hands. You can do a lot more as a group than you can by yourself. You can attack multiple projects at once versus, okay, I got to complete this, then we'll move on to the next one. Got to complete this, then we'll move on to the next one. We kind of divvied up. Okay, these are your responsibilities. These are mine. These are yours. These are yours. Next week, Friday, we'll meet. Everybody will have their tasks done, and then we'll move on to the next stuff. So
yeah, that's fantastic. One of the greatest advice that I've received from a friend of mine too is like the best collaborators win. Like by finding like the perfect partners, or even like some people that you may not even partner partnering with, but like when you're trying to be a silo and you're trying to do everything yourself,
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest thing that may stifle your growth. But when you surround yourself with like-minded individuals or people that complement your weakness, obviously that's a very great testament to the growth that you've seen.
Yeah.
Like when you find the right people, even for your team too, the right leaders and the right people for your team, the growth is inevitable.
Yeah. Speed of the captain, speed of the crew. They're going to follow your lead. And if you're not following through, if you're not being your word, you're going to create a culture of people that don't follow through and are their word. It's not to say that there wasn't bumps in the road along the way. We had many, many challenges along the way. I mean, we've had everything but the kitchen sink thrown at us. And because of the partnership, because of our ability to have tough conversations with each other, our ability to hold each other accountable, to look in the mirror, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
You can't be sensitive. You can't take it personal, right? None of us are perfect. We all have flaws. And sometimes you're going to see those flaws in somebody else. Like, if you get triggered by somebody, there's a very good chance that you're triggered because there's a mirror happening. They're doing something that you don't like about yourself, so it's triggering you. And I recognize that quite a bit along the way. And so I've evolved. I've grown as a man. I've grown as a follower of Christ. I've grown as a partner, an entrepreneur. And I know my partners have as well. Since 2018, Adam and myself have bought out the other two partners, Mark and John. We still own a big commercial property together. We're still great friends. But, they were getting kind of seasoned and we're ready to kind of not retire, but pump the brakes on the hustle and bustle of entrepreneurship. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a daily grind. I don't think it's 24/7. I think what's really important is, my partner Mark will probably disagree with me on this, but I've always talked about creating a life that's balanced. And if you ask somebody that's, say, an entrepreneur guru from, say, the 80s, they would laugh in your face, right? They would say, no. You want to be an entrepreneur? You want to be great? There is no balance. It's all or nothing, right? But the reality is that through technology, through the advancement of technology, we can create a business that has some autopilotness to it that allows you to be a great husband, to be a great father, to coach that little league team, right? To do the things that maybe your dad or your mom never got to do because they were living in that world that didn't have the technology that we have today. Yeah. And so, back in the day, to send a piece of mail to California, it would take 2-3 weeks to get it over there, right? Right now, you can train 1,000 people on a Zoom call from anywhere in the world, and AI, like we've used so much AI now in our automations internally in the business, where you used to have to have a human person to carry out that task. Now I build these automation processes and workflows that really eliminate the need for human hands and human error. Yeah. And human problems like needing time off, getting sick, wanting a raise, all of these things. Not to say that having a humanistic portion of your business is very important, because it is. You got to have great people. But the little things that kind of have held us back from scaling with speed, they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've scaled multiple businesses, I think 4 of them to 8 and 9 figures. What would you say was your greatest, lever that has helped you to grow to that level?
My partner Adam always says this. He says, proper preparation prevents poor performance, the 5 Ps, right? And so having systems and processes are what allow you to scale. If you don't have systems and processes, it's going to break every day. You're going to have things that go wrong. Those systems and processes allow the business to run efficiently. I'll give you an example. I'll give you kind of an example of our workflow for a solar customer.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question. Can you share some examples of the processes and systems that you've created that has helped you grown so much?
Yeah, 100%. And so we do digital marketing for our company. Lead comes in. That lead comes in through what we call a Zapier, a Zap, right? It goes to the telemarketing board. It instantly picks up by the dialer. We have an auto dialer that just calls and calls and calls. It calls the lead. The agent in our call center picks up the phone, books the appointment. Then automatically gets transferred to the confirmer. The confirmer verifies they own the home, verifies their credit score, verifies they don't have a house that's covered in trees, a couple steps in the process to make sure that they're a qualified customer. So we're not sending our sales rep out there to somebody who's unqualified, wasting their time. And so they book the appointment. It gets assigned to a board. It gets assigned to a rep. The rep then is going out there, say the next day to run that appointment. Let's say they sell the job. The customer says, yes, I want to move forward. Right then and there, they can get them approved for credit. We have automations built through our lending partners so that they can apply for credit right then and there in the home and get an approval within 30 seconds. Once that's done, the sales rep, when they leave the house, they fill out we call it a disposition form. So it's just a digital link they fill out, giving all the customer information, all the details of the project, any special notes. When they hit submit, it pulls that into our CRM. Now it's in the workflow, right? Now it's a real customer. First it was a lead, now it's a customer. Once it's a customer, it's going to what we call site survey. So the very first step in the workflow is site survey. We go out there, we take pictures of the home, we measure stuff. That then gets submitted through another disposition form, goes directly to the engineering team. Engineering team builds out the electrical schematic, the structural schematic, and then they submit that over to the next step, which is permitting. Now it automatically goes to the permit department. Now we're waiting on a permit. Once that comes in, we get a notification, permit's ready. Now the next, the project coordinator sees that the permit's ready. They're contacting the customer, scheduling the install. We go out and install it. Same process for the inspection. Then when the project's all complete, they've passed inspection, the last step we do is what it's called an exit survey is what we call it. We've been paid, the project is complete. Now we're actually going back out to the customer's house just to do a survey. What did you love about our process? What did you hate about our process? Is there any promises that the sales rep made that haven't come true yet? Is there any work that you're unsatisfied with? And so in the customer's eye, it's so important, man, because a lot of people think that they're going to pay for something, the contractor's going to take their money, do their work, and then be gone and never service them. We wanted to create something different. We wanted to show the customer, look, we've already been paid 30, 60 days ago. We want to make sure that you're happy. And in doing that, they become raving fans, right? They're like, wow, you guys, you knocked it out of the park for the install, and now you're back out here making sure I'm good and I didn't have to pay for you to come out here.
And that's when they become like, your greatest promoter. Like they're going to recommend you to other people because they see that care that you put into it. And obviously you've done a great job to achieve that. Yeah, strive to exceed expectation. I can tell you how many times that has happened. When you go above and beyond, that person becomes your evangelist. Yeah. They go out there and, become your biggest promoter and telling everybody about you.
It's free marketing, right? Yeah. One negative experience will get spread 20x. So if you create a negative experience for someone and you don't resolve it, they're going to tell at least 20 people about that negative experience. There's a compounding effect with that. On the flip side, you create a positive experience. Guess what the X is?
I do not know.
2 times.
Really?
2 times. But during that exit survey, when it's all said and done, we make sure they're happy. We ask them, if you feel we've done a great job, would you mind giving us some reviews on our review platforms? Would you mind referring anybody that you know, love, and care about that we could offer our services to? And we do that every single day, and it just compounds. And what happens is now we're paying them a referral fee because they gave me somebody that they love. So now they're paying off their solar loan or their roof loan with the money that we're sending them. I always tell my customers, I'm like, look, send me 1 customer a quarter. So for a year, you'll never have to pay for your loan. We'll pay for it, right?
Wow.
And so that's all we need.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That may have been somebody else. It may have not been you, but somebody in here said that they had the most reviews in Tampa Bay. I don't think that was you.
No, it wasn't me.
Okay.
We out of our local Google My Business, we have over 1,500 reviews.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to get somebody to say, yeah, I'm willing to go on Google and take my time and leave a nice comment for you. And the reality is those exit surveys aren't always peachy clean, right? We get out there and maybe we broke a sprinkler head, or there's a rust stain in the driveway because the dumpster from the roof, it rained while we were out there and the rust came out of the bottom. Anything can happen. But it's about what you do to correct those issues that really stand out in the eyes of the customer.
Absolutely.
Some people are crazy, right? You know, we're selling, you know, a couple hundred new customers a month. And so a very small percentage of them are a little nuts, like just irrational, out of this world crazy, but I still treat them with as much love and care as I can.
Absolutely.
Like there's a saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Some people live their life by that saying. I'm not one of those people where they're screaming at you, yelling at you when something goes wrong because they think that they have to in order for you to come and fix it, right? But the reality is that we don't roll like that. You don't have to yell and scream, we'll come. Even if you yell and scream, we'll still come. But you know, they live their whole life like that. They treat everybody like that. But at Solar Bear, at Roof Bear, at Foam Bear, at Air Bear, we care like crazy.
Yeah.
Our office staff are called the Care Bears.
The Care Bears. I love that.
Bears.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've grown multiple businesses to 8 and 9 figures.
Yes.
What are some of the biggest mistakes or challenges that you faced along the way, and how did you solve those?
If you're doing more than $5 million a year, whatever industry that you're in, you need to have a great CPA, a great bookkeeper, and even potentially a tax strategist. Because I have given Uncle Sam millions of dollars, but there are strategies out there that can help you reinvest that money tax-free, so that you don't have to give 40% of what you earned back to the government. That's one thing that's really important. On the accounting side, you know, as you start as a mom and pop shop, whether you're a barber or a marketer or whatever, most people run their accounting books on a cash basis. When private equity wants to come in and buy you, or when somebody wants to buy your business, they want your accounting ran on accrual basis, if you're familiar with that.
Absolutely.
And so if I could give some advice, make the change now before you're big, because once you're big and you try to go back and do it, it's so expensive. It's, you know, to do a forensic audit of your financials, you know, you might spend $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 just to correct your books. Then you got to continue to pay your accountant, your CPA, or your bookkeeper, whoever you have. But I think the number one problem in scaling businesses is the lack of financial wisdom, right? Whether it be overspending, nobody putting together a pro forma or projections about what's going to come in the future. Again, it goes back to the 5 Ps, right? Proper preparation prevents poor performance. If we can continue to be prepared, look out ahead 6, 12, 18 months, then it doesn't matter what challenges arise, right? Yeah. I'll give you an example. Last year, we got hit with 2 hurricanes within 3 weeks of each other, right? September 27th, October 9th.
I can't believe you know those exact dates.
Oh, yeah. I'm a roofer, of course I know. You know, my phone didn't stop ringing for 3 months after those hurricanes, but I had to float over $1 million in payroll during that time, meaning we couldn't do any work. Nobody wanted us to come to their house and sell them a roof or solar because they were trying to figure out how to get back to their house and get the power back on.
Yeah.
You know, my payroll's $200,000, $300,000 a week, depending on the week. And I had to float it for over a month. Had I not been financially prepared, the ship would have sunk, right? Yeah. If I had not, I don't want to use the word frugal, because I don't think we're frugal. We're not like just holding all our money tight. We know where to spend, but we were smart. Both myself and my business partners, we're not flashy guys. We're not out there driving around in Lambos and, you know, trying to be something for everybody else. That's not what we are. We put the money back into the business. We have close to 200 employees who I care tremendously about.
Yeah.
Some of them have been working for me since 2015, since the very beginning.
Wow.
Some of them are literally family to me. And so as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you have a responsibility to your people. And a lot of that gets forgotten as you get bigger, right? You know, as you become corporate, people start to become more of a data point, a number, than they are a human with a heart, with a family to take care of. And so just being properly prepared, being smart with your money, not overextending yourself, not trying to be something that you're not. Grow strategically. You don't have to be Mr. Big Shot right out the gate. Do the little things. Have attention to detail. Take care of your customers. The wisdom, and then everything else follows.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Do the little thing great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Were there any time through your journey that you hit rock bottom And how did you come out of that?
Yeah, certainly. There's been, like I had mentioned, so in 2016, the government in Florida was trying to eliminate net metering. They did it through what was called Amendment 1, and it was a vote of the people. And so we were going out to early voting, informing the voters of the crafty language that they had put in there that was very confusing to senior citizens. And so that was the first time that we thought, like, man, solar could potentially go away, because without net metering is how the power companies give credit to the homeowner or to the business owner for their solar production. And so they were trying to eliminate that. Luckily, we won, right? There was enough lobbyists and people that jumped up at the last minute to, make it known. And so we won that. Then in 2021, going into 2022, they tried to do the same thing, but this time they were going through the House and the Senate. It was House Bill 741. So I, and along with other people, hired lobbyists. We went to Tallahassee. We testified at all of these meetings. And the bill was so heavily opposed by the constituents on the other side of the microphone, testifying in front of the House and the Senate representatives, but yet they still voted to pass the bill.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because you've got, Florida is a regulated state. It's one of, I think, 10 or 11 states that are still regulated by the utility companies, or have regulated utilities, meaning that based on your address, you're connected to a power company. If you don't like it, you don't have the option to change power companies. Like right now, you might have Spectrum for your cable, but you don't want that anymore. You're going to go with, Verizon Fios. You have the option to change. You have the freedom to change. In Florida, we don't have that freedom. And so we call it a monopoly. The utility companies have a monopoly here. And so they have invested in House Bill 741 over $24 million. And when I say invested, I mean, paid out people to make sure this bill goes through. Because it didn't make any sense to me. Like, how could this bill be so heavily opposed? Like, every single person standing in front of you is making intelligent, articulate arguments with fact data showing you, yet you still vote yes. Why? The cheddar. The cheddar, right? And so I remember I went to the Governor's Club at midnight to meet with Lawrence McClure, who was the House representative bill sponsor. Sat there and drank a glass of whiskey with him. And he basically told me, like, this bill's going forward. There's nothing anybody can do about it. It's already decided, even though the vote hasn't happened. That's what he told me. The next day, I was able to go to Jennifer Bradley's office. Jennifer Bradley was the Senate representative of the bill. Had a great conversation with her. She wasn't as direct as Lawrence were. He probably had a little cocktails before I got there, so he was willing to share more information than she was. But they were very kind and willing to speak with me. Luckily, Ron DeSantis vetoed the bill before it went live. And so crazy stuff had happened. The lenders that we use had shut down at one point in time, where we had all these projects that we had installed, but we hadn't been paid for. And so again, floating millions of dollars, draining the company bank account to fix the problem that we didn't cause, that was completely outside of our control. And so those were the times that, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. It was a different kind of pressure than, going to prison or dealing with that. But, now it's like, okay, I've amassed some wealth. My family's life has changed. I have hundreds of employees whose lives have changed. They've bought their first home. They've got nice cars. They've got toys. And man, what are we going to do? And so obviously having God, having the Bible, you feel the pressure for a moment, but it says, do not worry about anything, but in every situation, through prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace that surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So that, for me, when I feel the pressure, when I feel the anxieties coming up, I just go read, and then they're gone.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now talking about all of that, you say something all the time that says like a dummy tax. Can we talk about that specifically?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Dummy tax. So
fail forward fast.
Fail forward fast. You guys have all heard that saying, right? It's just about continuing to move forward quickly, making decisions, planning, and moving forward. The dummy tax just comes along the way because a lot of times there's no manual to follow, right? We were starting a solar company. It wasn't very popular yet at that time. Programs were just starting to come out to make it more viable for people to get solar. And we made a lot of mistakes on the way. And in those mistakes, you pay what I call dummy tax, right? I didn't know that that costs like that. I didn't know that had to be like that. I didn't know this regulation was there, and I had to pay to fix all of these issues. But instead of paying to fix the issues and forgetting about it and making the same mistake down the road, what you want to do is you want to create a system and a process. Some people call it a standard operating procedure, SOPs, so that that mistake never happens again. And as you continue to fail forward fast and you pay more dummy tax along the way, because again, there's things that you aren't aware of, you start to have all of these systems and processes that you've built that are now causing the business to run really efficiently, to cash flow at a very high level, to make sure everybody's getting paid every week and everybody's smiling, right? That comes over time. You're not going to have it all figured out when you just get going. You're going to feel the weight of the world. You're going to make those mistakes. You're going to pay that dummy tax. It's a for sure thing, unless you've got the greatest mentor of the world that's standing over your shoulder, guiding your every step. God's not going to tell you how to run your business. That's for you. That's your heart posture, your intention. But if you give it to him and say, hey, listen, I'm not sure. I've got these decisions in front of me that I need to make. I'm praying on this, and show me which direction I need to go. Yeah. He's going to point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
When you say, hey, God, it's not my will. Let your will be done. I don't want my will. I want what you have for my life, because what you have for my life far surpasses anything I've got up in here.
Yeah.
Anything that I ever thought of or daydreamed about or whatever. God's plan is so much better. And so fail forward fast, but create systems and processes or standard operating procedures and document them, right? Meaning put it in a manual, whether it's a digital manual, whether you like to write it down, put it in a manual, document it so that you can train on it at a later date. Because the reality is that most people that come and work for you, and I say this to my employees, I say, look, I don't expect this to be your lifelong career. I expect you to give 110% while you're here, and for Solar Bear or Roof Bear or Foam Bear or Air Bear to be a great stepping stone for you to get to wherever it is that you're trying to go. I want you to learn everything that you can possibly learn here so that when you get onto your next venture, you're so much better than when you showed up at Solar Bear. That's what I want for my people.
Awesome.
And so with people leaving, right, you have new people coming in. They need to be trained. And so when you document those and you create trainings around those standard operating procedures, you train your managers on how to train the new people on those standard operating procedures. Now the business is humming.
Yeah.
It's like an assembly line, right? It goes to the next part, they do their part. It goes to the next part, they do their part. And you just rinse and repeat over and over and over again. And eventually you have success. And some people will, I did it. You didn't do nothing. You didn't do nothing without God's grace.
God did it.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next point. One thing that you say all the time is growing business fitfully. What does it mean to grow a business fitfully?
Every business has a culture, whether you recognize it or not. And I knew that I wanted to create a culture that was biblically sound. If you go on our website, it's still the same mission statement that was put on it in 2015. God, family, and good business stewardship. That's what we want to do at our companies. And whether it's the companies we have today or the companies we're creating in the future, God, family, and good business stewardship. Because that was the beginning, I always tried to breathe into that. In every meeting that I have, I'm mentioning God. At the end of every meeting, I'm praying over the company. I've had people quit because of it, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I literally have. I mean, because I don't discriminate when I hire. I've hired lesbians, gays, blacks, white, Muslim, Jew. I don't care, right? I do not care. What I care about is your heart posture. And so every morning I send out basically a morning motivation that is biblically based, and just pulling different stories from the Bible and doing a comparative analysis to how it's similar to what they're maybe going through right in this day and time. And so I called a drip campaign. I'm just always dripping. And my business partner went out and bought a Bible, started reading. He was probably pretty close to being an atheist. Like,
wow.
He was a political science major, very, very intelligent guy, very analytical. And I think guys like him have a very hard time believing in the fairy tale of the story of Christ, the resurrection, the creation of the earth. It makes more sense to follow man's idea of the Big Bang theory or, some of the other theories that are out there. And so I know that through my drip campaign, it allows God to reap the harvest. The Bible tells us that I can't make you go to Christ.
Yeah.
I can't do anything that you can do.
Plant the seed.
That's it.
That's all you need to do.
So I just try to plant seeds every day. And little by little, I get text messages from staff. They're sharing their morning devotional with me. Like, I've never talked to you.
That is awesome.
Right? Like about this, but now I can feel it, I can see it, I can smell it, I can taste it. It continues to spread.
Yeah.
And so just planting seeds of, biblical values throughout the company, doing what's right because it's right. Right?
Yeah.
Not because somebody's watching you or you're trying to look a certain way, but because, integrity is, what you do when nobody's around.
Yeah.
That's what real integrity is. What are you thinking when nobody's around? What are your thoughts? What's your heart posture? What's your intention? That's where integrity comes from. It's not doing what's right because people are watching you, but it's doing what's right because it's right, right?
Yeah. I think it's awesome that you incorporate a lot of people, Christian, that are running businesses. They are afraid of incorporating God or like the Bible as part of their culture, like because of they might hiring, different types of people in the business. They don't want to offend anybody. And as a result, they decide not to speak their faith and sharing their faith. Yeah. So it's pretty awesome that you do that. And that is part of your culture. You mentioned earlier that you have over 200 employees now. So how do you develop leaders?
Well, we used to do we call it the lit call. Leaders in training. Like, it's lit.
It's so lit. Let's go.
It's lit.
Fire, baby.
It's fire, baby. But yeah, we would do the leaders in training call. And so basically we would give a platform for people that wanted to grow and move up in the company to basically, come forward with a topic and basically present to the group. And then we would give them critiques, constructive criticism on their presentation. And then the rest of the company that's on that call would also give them critiques. And so little by little, people tend to stand out, right? A great leader, you can recognize a great leader because they're going to do things for your company that they weren't asked to do. They're not going to be the person that says, "Oh, that's not my job." Right?
That's so great. That's so good.
Yeah. You're going to recognize it because you'll be like, "Man, that girl is a beast. She's like, I didn't ask her to do any of that stuff and she went and got it all done." That girl wants to be a leader. She does, because why else is she doing that? She wants to grow. There are some people that just want to go through the motions, right? They don't have an interest in being a leader. Maybe their spouse makes more money than them and they're just doing this for their fun money, but they do a good job at their job, but they're not trying to be, the person that's leading the group. Not everybody has that desire. So training, religious training, man, just constant every single week. I mean, we have trainings every single week and we've had trainings every single week since the beginning. We do not miss them, not for vacation, not for, obviously death or a funeral or something like that, but we really try not to miss them. If it gets missed for that day, it's scheduled for the next morning or whatever it might be. Doing things outside of your company together, right? We are connected with Habitat for Humanity. We've done the 700th, the 800th, the 900th, and then we're doing the 1,000th home on the 22nd of this month.
Wow.
We donate a free roof and a free solar system.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and so, doing stuff like that with your company, doing events, walks for cystic fibrosis or, just any kind of philanthropy that you could do together really creates a strong bond. And it helps people recognize that they're working for a company that stands for something, that has values, that has morals. Because a lot of people really desire that because maybe the last place they were working was the exact opposite, right? Greed, lust, all sorts of crazy things were probably running through the company that they were in the past. And when you create an environment where, I always said this, I wanted to create an environment where people could come to work and enjoy it.
Yeah.
The environment, because the reality is we spend more time at work than we get to with our own family. Yeah. Right? With our own wife and our own kids. And so it shouldn't be a place that they come to and as they're in the parking lot, like having to force themselves out of the car to go in. They have to put on a fake smile. Like, you want to create a safe place for them that they can grow, that they can excel, that they can be themselves, that they can, be honest and open about maybe things that they're going through. And so we've created that environment at Solar Bear and the other companies.
That is awesome. You shared just a whole playbook over here. What are some of the advice that you would give to people that basically maybe they just started, they want to grow that business to like exceed $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. What are some of the advice that you would give them today that they can start applying to grow their business to be at that level?
That's a tough one because, you know, so many different industries out there, but, you know, at least the first thing I would start with is content creation. That's the world we live in today. So creating yourself to be an authoritative figure in the marketplace. You could be tiny, but if you have great content, people will think you're massive. You will look bigger than you actually are. For example, when we first started Solar Bear as a partnership, we were still pretty small. Like we only had a few employees, but I said, you know what, guys? I was like, we need to do a TV commercial, like cable TV. And so December of 2018, so almost a year after the start of the partnership, we launched on Fox and ABC. So from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. every morning for 5 years, we were on Fox and ABC, our morning commercial. What that did for us was that it gave us relevance when we're in the home selling our services. Like they just saw us on TV today. When we first started doing that, we weren't big, but people perceived us as being really large. And so now I'm not telling you to go spend $15,000 a month on a TV commercial, but what I am telling you to do is to create educational-based videos around whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're an artist, a marketer, you're in construction, you're in insurance, you're in real estate, whatever it might be, create content because people love authentic, real, down-to-earth videos. Like we're all a little addicted to it. I know I am. I love watching people grow and people excel. And so people think like, okay, I got to do it. I'm never going to have 1 million followers. I'm never going to, do anything with it. But the answer is you won't, right? You won't until you start with day one. The reality is you got to take the first step, right? You got to move on that thought in your head. You got to take action. So content would be number one. Number two would be to own your lead machine. I'll give you an example. When we first started, I said that to my partners. I was like, guys, if we just keep buying data and buying leads from other lead sources, if those guys go away and we've grown to this massive company, what's going to happen to us? Boom, we're going to go way down. So you want to own the lead machine. And you can buy leads, you can buy data, but simultaneously, parallel to that, you should be starting that marketing effort to start generating your own leads. Because over time, this side's going to grow. This side might go down. It might grow as well. But if this side goes away, you've got a sure foundation of the content you've created. You become an authoritative figure in your marketplace, so people are looking to you as an expert in your field, and you will have developed trust. And that's what people need today more than ever. We are in a trust recession. People do not trust the way that they used to. Why? I mean, just look at what we've been through the last 5 years.
Yep.
We were lied to about COVID. We were lied to about the vaccines. We were lied to about our government over and over and over and over and over again. We're still being lied to. And so people have a very hard time trusting. But if you're authentic and you're real and you're trustworthy, people are going to buy from you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that commercial. Unique content. Unique content. And also, being authentic about it. And one of the things that we're working on right now is to help people become the trusted authority in their own market.
Yeah.
By producing the TV commercials or the other thing that gives you that perceived magnetic authority that you are.
Yeah.
And other people, as a result, that probably played a huge role in you growing that business so much from 2018, 2019 when you were doing TV commercials.
Yeah, TV. We were doing TV and radio.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah, radio's awesome. Radio's a lot less expensive than TV, and you get a lot of viewers. What I would say, if you're ever going to invest in marketing on the radio, do not go to a music station. You want to be on talk radio. Why? What happens when people are listening to music and a commercial comes on?
They probably change it or maybe
turn it down,
tunes it completely.
Yep.
Yeah,
turn it off, turn it down, change the channel. On talk radio, which we've always advertised on talk radio, they're there to listen, right? And so when your commercial comes on, they listen to it, and we get a lot of great results from it. But stay off of music channels and focus on talk radio. It could be podcasts. iHeartMedia has a great program. Podcasts are, growing like crazy. There's millions of them, and there are some very popular ones. You can advertise on those stations. You can advertise with your favorite host that you listen to for relatively cheap through iHeartMedia.
Yeah.
So a lot of cool avenues that you can take out there.
Awesome. I have two more questions and then we'll wrap up. The next question is something that I've always asked everybody as we're ending the talk show. What is the $1 million advice that you would give to somebody watching this?
The world is fleeting. It's like trying to grab the wind. All the success you want to amass, all the followers you want to amass, you can take none of it with you. And none of us knows our last day here on earth. And so the $1 million idea, I'm going to call it the $1 billion idea, is to start the journey with Christ by picking up the Bible and reading it cover to cover. Don't try to understand it. Don't try to comprehend it. Just read, and God will show you the answers to your questions. You will see drastic change in your life. You will see blessings that you never thought were possible. You will get doors open for you that you didn't even know were there. And so Ecclesiastes in the Bible talks about that in the beginning. It just talks about how temporal this world is and how short life really is and how meaningless all these things that they call it your toil. You're toiling constantly for work and you're trying to keep up with the masses. But the reality is that it's fleeting. It disappears. You can't take it with you. We all come into this world naked and we leave naked with nothing.
100%.
So follow God, follow Christ. Don't wait any longer. If you're listening to this, this is your sign. This is your calling. If God can take a man like me who was a cheater, a violent man, broken, self-centered, egotistical, whatever label you want to put on it, if he can take a guy like me and show me the way and change my life and then use me to change the lives of others, he for sure can do it for you.
Boom. And that's what I like to say. That's so fire, baby. Let's go. That was awesome.
Love it.
That was great. When you were talking about that, one other thing that come to mind is like Business Secrets from the Bible, which is a fantastic book that I recently purchased that I've started reading. It's a little bit of a hard read, but like Business Secrets from the Bible is a really good for entrepreneurs out there that want to see what God is saying that can be transferable to the business. It's a fantastic book. Last question. Man, it was such a great time having you on the show today. Last question for people that might be interested about learning about you guys, like the different businesses that you have, and also learning about Sold Out Podcast.
Let's go.
How can they get a hold of you?
You can visit solarbear.com, solarbear.com. We've got all of our services on that site. You also have roofbear.com, foambear.com, but solarbear.com houses all the information. It's got our email address, our contact information. What's great about our businesses, and one of the things that I didn't mention is how we scaled, is having great financing for your customers, right? Our average ticket ranges anywhere from $35,000 to $51,000. And having financing for our customers that allows them to keep their cash in their pocket. And like, for an example, right? Insurance company calls you up, says, hey, your roof's 18 years old. If you don't get it changed out in the next 30 days, we're dropping you. So they start scrambling. They're moving money around. We got to come up with 15, 16 grand. They call up a roofing company. They need 50% down, 50% when it's done. When I saw that kind of issue in the industry, I said, man, we've got to come up with financing for our people so they don't have to come off their cash. And so we offer tremendous financing. You can finance your solar system for up to 30 years. You can finance your roof for up to 20 years. And what that does is it allows you to keep your cash and put it somewhere it can grow, right? You guys, I'm sure if you're online right now, crypto is being talked about everywhere, whether it's Bitcoin or XRP or Ethereum or any of the other meme coins or whatever that is out there. Surety bonds, stock market, whatever you want to put your dollars in, you can put it somewhere it can grow instead of taking $15,000 out of savings and paying for a new roof that, listen, we all have to have a roof over our head. We always thank God, like, God, thank you for the roof over my head.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not exciting. It doesn't move. It only benefits me in one way, which is a great way to keep me safe. But you hate spending money on stuff like that, right?
Yep.
You know, there's no experience that comes with it. It's just like, okay, I got the same color roof that I had before. It's just new. Woohoo. Right? But, you know, financing. We offer tremendous financing for all of our products. If you have an insurance issue where the deductible's out of this world and you can't afford it, call us. We'll finance the system for you. Don't worry if you've got roof leaks, if you've got a massive power bill, if you have inadequate insulation where you've just got hot pockets in the home, we can solve all of these issues for you. And one thing that people love about us is that we do not use subcontractors. All of our installers work directly for the company. They're all in company vehicles. They're all under our workers' comp and our general liability. And so there's no risk. We control the quality, we control the speed, we control the workmanship, and we control the customer experience. A lot of contractors out there, they're like the middleman, right? You pay them, but then they got to go pay somebody else to do the work. We don't roll like that. We want to make sure your house is in much better shape than when we got there.
Boom.
Boom.
There you have it. Man, it was such a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
Such great, fantastic story and journey. And like the most important part of it is like how God has used you from, you know, rock bottom and has grown, and you have grown so much. Man, this is such a powerful testimony.
Thank you.
And the success that you've had and all the great things that I know that God has in the future, you know, for you. And I'm super excited for, you know, Sold Out Podcast to crush it and reaching out so many people and utilizing that journey that God has, you know, put you through and to be able to witness to other people. So thank you so much for sharing that. And for anybody watching this, if you're looking for roof, looking for solar, you're looking for foam, you're looking for
insulation
and
backup batteries.
There you have it. This is your man. Please contact him, solarbear.com. Thank
you so much. Let's go.
It's fire, baby. Let's go.